Vice President Kashim Shettima receives delegation from the Islamic Development Bank. Says Tinubu administration is creating the right environment for investment in Nigeria.
Our engagement with ISDP is our national interest.
House of Reps rejects second reading of a bill seeking rotational presidency among 6 geopolitical zones.
Even in this National Assembly, the speakership and the deputy speakership will zone. And if this is entrenched in the Constitution, it will bring justice.
CBN to boost diaspora remittance through non-residential BVN.
Importantly, diasporans will also have the flexibility to fully repatriate the proceeds of their investments.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we will examine reforming the discourse.
The electricity sector in Nigeria has undergone reforms aimed at modernizing and expanding access to electricity with a focus on private sector participation and renewable energy integration. Indeed,
the Electricity Act 2023, which repealed the 2005 Electricity Power Sector Reform Act, is a fundamental key component of this reform, liberalizing generation, transmission, and encouraging private investment.
That's true, Claire. The Electricity Act 2023 allows for the issuance of licenses to private investors for mini-grids, power plants, and other electricity-related operations within a state.
Absolutely. Now, it is on this note that government is contemplating implementing an overhaul of underperforming electricity distribution companies, that's DISCOs, to improve service delivery and, of course, their efficiency.
Also, efforts are underway to increase metering and enhance billing and collection efficiency to improve transparency and revenue for DISCOs, while mass metering program gets underway to improve billing transparency.
And the World Bank recently described the current subsidy in Nigeria as wasteful and regressive, as it undermines economic gains from ongoing reforms.
In addition, the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, said the federal government can no longer sustain electricity subsidy as it owes power generating companies over 4 trillion naira. The minister adds that a new tariff will reflect the true cost of electricity. I am Ademola Adeoye. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. We thank you for joining us wherever you're watching from. And we're live on the network service of the NTA shortly. Stella Inamete will be joining us for the highlights of the morning news. And much later, we'll be reviewing the newspapers. So let's quickly join Stella for the morning news. Good morning, Stella.
Good morning, Claire and Ademola. Here's the morning news. Vice President Kashim Shettima says through critical reforms in key sectors of the economy, the Tinubu administration has addressed most of the critical issues and creating the right environment for investors in Nigeria. The Vice President stated this when he received a delegation from the Islamic Development Bank Group, led by its head of Regional Hub, Hamad Hundal, on a courtesy visit at the presidential villa. He pointed out that with well-thought-out interventions in human capital development, nutrition, agriculture, health, education, and promotion of digital trade, the administration has demonstrated government in addressing challenges in critical sectors.
I encourage you to continue this engagement, especially the first rollout of our halal strategy.
Senate has adopted a motion urging more military deployment to the northeast to address the resurgence of Boko Haram in the region. This was sequel to a motion from the Senate Chief Whip, Mohammed Tahir Mongono, and the 5 other senators from Borno and Yobe states.
The state sect has resorted to planting improvised explosive devices, IEDs, in strategic areas, which when they explode always result in high casualties and obstruct vehicular movement.
Calling on the security apparatus to maybe change the tactics or the plan.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has rejected the second reading of a bill seeking rotational presidency among the 6 geopolitical zones. The constitutional alteration bill sponsored by Deputy Speaker of the House, Benjamin Kalu, failed to scale the hurdle of second reading when it was put to a voice vote on the floor.
The rotation should go down to the governorship in all the states. Mr. Speaker, I believe every zone of the country have people with capacity.
Even in this National Assembly, the speakership and the deputy speakership will zone. And if this is entrenched in the Constitution, it will bring justice.
Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, has re-emphasized that President Bola Tinubu welcomes constructive criticism at all times, but will never allow himself to be distracted from doing what is right for Nigeria. He represented the president at the launch of a book titled Being True to Myself, an autobiography of former Jigawa State Governor Sule Lamido, who is also the author.
We are now entering an era of intended beneficial outcomes underlined by macroeconomic stability. Have there been some pains accompanying these efforts? Of course, yes. The president himself will be the first to agree. But he remains resolute in his commitment to introducing programs and policies to alleviate these pains and make life better for all Nigerians.
In a bold step toward erasing borders in banking, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, NIBS, is lighting the path for Nigerians abroad through the Non-Resident Bank Verification Number, or NRBVN. The future of diaspora banking was unveiled at a one-day symposium in Abuja.
Diasporans will also have the flexibility to fully repatriate the proceeds of their investments in accordance with existing regulations, ensuring confidence and convenience in managing their assets.
And those are the news highlights. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Ademola and Claire after these messages.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their social economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, 1 person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, 1 person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
Hear that? It's the roar of the crowd, the pulse of champions, the sound of history being made. Ogun State is ready to host the biggest sporting event of the year, the 22nd National Sports Festival, Gateway Games Ogun 2024. From May 16th to 30th, 2025, the nation's finest athletes will gather at the MKO Abiola Stadium, Abeokuta, and other sports centers in Ogun State. 33 sports, 36 states, and the FCT Gateway Games Ogun 2024, a celebration of sports, unity, and culture. Host, His Excellency, Governor Dapo Abiodun.
We're live in the open market for Epic 10X Challenge. My people, today I will show you how the power of new Epic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so.
Impossible.
Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Epic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Epic is better than bleach.
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
At NTA Television College JOS, you will dive into exhilarating hands that will fuel your passion in education and propel your career to new heights. We don't just teach, we craft the next generation of media leaders. Explore our diverse offering, understanding the personnel matters and issues in the public service, basic development communication, financial reporting under IPSAS, and interpretation of public sector accounting standard IPSAS, audit, internal check and control management, video camera maintenance, new technologies, optics, fiber, IP technologies, automation, storage management, and wireless technology. Challenges and opportunities in the secretarial profession in the digital age. Digital marketing, basic drama, online reporting, understanding the provisions of the revised public service, audio engineering operations and maintenance, camera operations, and intermediate drama. Mark your calendar. The second quarter of 2025 is your launch pad. This is your moment to seize the future. Announcer Management.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Up next is Newspaper Review.
All right, thank you for joining us. Let's quickly begin with the Daily Times.
What happened to your friend?
Sorry, Demola, you went here yesterday. Chukwude, it's under the weather.
I know you will be under the weather with the bashing that they received over the weekend. It's okay, no problem. Go ahead.
What bashing? I don't want to talk about anything. You know what they say? You know what they say? An Arsenal fan is a husband material. That's what someone said. Because of the steadfastness.
You kid yourself. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. Anyway, Demola, good to see you. Let's quickly begin with the Daily Times. And Senate moves altering FAG composition to include LGA reps. That story is on page 2. And Tinubu, Jonathan, Akpabio, and others eulogized Clark at his funeral yesterday. Now, Nigeria to integrate 10 million out of school children by 2027. And just below the nameplate, well, this is the picture. The picture story is actually quite interesting there. You see the former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, and former vice president Alhaji Atiku Abubakar right there. Of course, it's always encouraging to see our leaders, shake hands, extend handshakes. It's quite interesting. Just below that picture story, other stories are trending. Deploy swift military action to tackle BH resurgence in the Northeast. That's according to the Senate. And there are other stories, of course, on this on the front page of the Daily Times. But let me quickly look at the front page of the Business Nigeria. Now, Business Nigeria is leading with NNPC fails to remit full subsidy savings, says World Bank. And other stories there. Of course, this is a business inclined paper. It says US-China rift won't rattle Africa. And that's coming from AfriBank. Naira wobbles at 1,620 Naira despite oil rebound. Is also there. And then there's a petrol pump price may drop below 900 Naira per litre as marketers plan adjustment. You can read of this story on page 2. Let us also look at blackout crisis worsens in Buhari as AEDC TCN stall repairs. Residents threaten mass protest. That story is on page 2. And that's all I have. Demola.
Okay, I have the Leadership newspaper and Daily Trust, but let me start with Leadership newspaper. Just above the nameplate, we are building critical transport infrastructure in FCT. That's the FCT Minister Wike. The details of that story can be found on page 6. Senate 6, inclusion of LG representatives in FARC. Details on page 6. And we have the below the nameplate. REE signs agreement with 58 firms for solar mini grids. Details on page 7. At Lamido's book launch, OBJ says our job not done. Details of that story can be found on page 17. Then we have concerns over INEC's 142 electoral reform proposals. CSO analysts express worry over delay, fear it may affect 2027 general elections. Reforms on course, lawmakers, reps reject bill on rotational presidency. Details of that story, which is the main story, it's on page 4. Federal government integrates AI in curriculum delivery. Details on page 8. APC caucus swells to 68 as 3 PDP senators join party. Court rules on Natasha's suspension on June 27, while CNG bus initiative is not working in state. Details of that story is on page 17. Then we have the front page picture there, cross-section of National Youth Service Corps members in a parade during the closing ceremony of Batch A Stream 1 orientation camp at Kubwa Orientation Camp in Abuja yesterday. Now let's move on to Daily Trust newspaper, right? And just below that nameplate of the Daily Trust, we have how to prevent sudden death in people over 60. Details of that story, it's on page 36. Reps reject bill on rotational presidency. We have the details of that story on page 38. Tax reform, Senate endorses 5% excise duty. Details on page 6. Then we have these Boko Haram kills 4 soldiers, renewed onslaught on military bases. the attack location. We have details on page 3 and 4. Lamido and I would have challenged Tinubu if we were governors. Amechi. Details on page 5. Rivers women protest abduction of 8 students traveling for WASC. Details on page 10. Qatar gift Trump $400 million jet. Details on page 8. Kidnappers invade FCT community, kill 3, abduct 1.
You know, Demola, there's an interesting story here that I would like us to look at. It's on the front page of the Daily Times, just a little above the nameplate. You know, about reintegrating 10 million out-of-school children by 2027. And, you know, it's so funny that since 2017, 2018, when this figure came out, you know, it's still been, you know, carried every time you hear 10 million out of school, and it raises a lot of questions. One, is the number static?
It's not that the number is static. I just think that, you know, as you reintegrate some of them into schools, right, you have more coming in.
And it remains 10 million.
No, I don't think so. They need to update their...
Yes, that's precisely what I'm saying.
They just
you need to
update
to
yes.
At least to accommodate, you know, efforts that have been made both at the state and national.
Which means that they need to state the efforts that they have made.
Yes, because
the number of pupils that they have integrated into schools and the ones that are yet to.
Yes.
You understand? That will just put paid to that. But I think they are making efforts.
Yes, because, you know, this data, that's why, you know, some people say, look, let us also give credit to NBS, because NBS will give you a more, you know, realistic or credible data as to the number of children that are out of school now, especially with the renewed, you know, onslaught here and there of these insurgents. But I thought I should point that out. Then the Senate altering FAC composition to include RGE reps. It's also on the Daily Times.
Yeah, it's here. I think I read it here as well. That the Senate wants, is it the Senate now? Okay, yes. Wants LG representative, you know, at FARC. Well, so that to allow for some transparency, I think.
Yes, because if you know if you recall the autonomy, you know, the financial autonomy, you know, given to the local government areas. So this certainly, it's in line to accommodate that, you know, and to also reflect, you know, the Supreme Court's ruling and all that. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, the Senate has called for urgent restructuring of the federal account, that is FAC, to include representative of local government and area councils. There has followed a motion by Deputy Senate President Baru Jibril. Anyway, I think it's a good development. It is.
But there's a sad story.
Okay, the Boko Haram kills 4 soldiers in renewed onslaught on military bases. You know, we talked about this issue of this upsurge of banditry again, especially in the northwest. And well, we just hope that the government at all levels, they are collaborating. You know, they have to collaborate actually to stem this tide. And
you know, the Senate is calling on the military to deploy swift action, military action, to tackle Boko Haram resurgence in the northeast. And I know a number of security, you know, analysts have come to say, look, probably what you need is a combination of kinetic and non-kinetic, you know, solutions. Well, Senate in their wisdom, members of the Senate in their wisdom know, you know, the extent, you know, of action they are asking the military to take. I mean, this is not encouraging at all that Boko Haram is, making a serious comeback and killing 4 soldiers. And you know what it means when, soldiers, die in the hands of insurgents.
Actually, when we had the discussion on Monday, I mean, what they guessed, what they suggested was that they should release, enough funds, to the military for them to be able to acquire, the latest, equipment to be able to combat all these insurgencies, because a lot of times you hear that billions, have been allocated, to purchase, arms and ammunition, but they don't get released. You understand? So how do you now fight all these, insurgency that they are coming with latest, weapons? It's so difficult for them. So they have to work on that, and the locals and the different the government, that is the state governments, the local government, and the federal government, they also must work together, because without that you cannot, fight this insurgency that is, coming up again.
I don't know if it is a matter of having the latest, equipment to fight Boko Haram. The implication will be that the Boko Haram insurgents are better equipped.
They are.
But that is
what they are actually saying, that they are better equipped with all the latest gadget that they have. But like, I think it was Professor Okeda said it, that, I mean, if you, equip the military, give them the drones, just one drone is enough, you understand, to be able to fight.
I always recall this. I recall when we went to Maiduguri, Borno State, one of the fighting men said to us, see, Nigerian military is better equipped to wipe out the insurgents within few months. Within few months. So in terms of equipment, really, I don't know, but I just think that there needs to be a kind of political will to really tackle, the insurgents. There needs to be a kind of coming together, like you said, a rapprochement between fighting men and the communities.
That's the thing, because the locals and then the governments at all, level, they must collaborate.
Because
if not,
these people, they are not invincible. They're within the communities. They relate with the communities. So
also to prevent sudden death in people over 60.
Well, we talked about one of our colleagues
that slumped and died. I
think Ogun State Television. One Bukola, may her soul rest in peace, and our hearts, go to her family and her children. But it would be good to know how to prevent that. I think that's why it's on what page, so people could.
I think it's on page. It's just that. What are they saying now? It said that. It said sudden death. We mean unexpected death in an individual previously thought to be well. Quite well. Common causes of this: severe hypertension, acute heart failure, stroke, heart disease, and also known as disorder of heart rhythm. So what you just need to do is do your normal exercise and make sure that you go for a normal, medical checkup. That's just it.
I think frequent medical check is quite ideal. You see people who slump while in the process of exercising.
Yeah, that is.
So the first step is, of course, do your routine medical check. Unfortunately, it doesn't come easy these days. It doesn't come cheap, but still do the preliminary checks to determine how healthy you are. The business Nigeria has some business stories. It says NNPC fails to remit full subsidy savings, and this is coming from the World Bank. The World Bank is saying to us that our own NNPC is not remitting full subsidy savings. Well,
well, you need.
So, I hear someone says, "God have mercy." Indeed, God will have mercy. Let me just read that. It says, speaking at the launch of May 2025 Nigeria Development Update in Abuja, the World Bank lead economist for Nigeria said, although the official exchange rate was adopted for fuel transactions by NNPC in October 2024, marking the end of implicit subsidies, the financial windfall from that move is not yet fully flowing into public coffers. Questions. So we leave it at that. Do you have other stories?
Yeah, well, we have this APC caucus swells to 68 as PDP senators join party. Well, they have the majority now out of 100 or so. Let me just check the details. I think right now the APC now has like 68 seats out of the 109 member Senate. 68. PDP now has 30 seats.
I just remain, and I think we should leave the politicians alone. I just like to remain with finally, just before we leave it at this, the US-China rift won't rattle Africa, Afrimbank. And so if you were thinking, or if you had the fear that it might affect us, Afrimbank is saying no. It's saying that Africa's direct trade with the US stands at just 5%. And 12% with China, totaling 17%, barely above intra-African trade at 16%. So that limited exposure, it noted, means Africa is not deeply entangled in the commercial friction between the two superpowers. All right, I think
and here, I mean, they're giving reason why CNG buses are not working in some states. It's more facts are emerging on why the compressed natural gas buses are not working in states after more than a year since the federal government announced the conversion policy. And I mean, so we don't know. It is good news that we have purchased, but the states that are finding it difficult to purchase the buses now because of the cost, we are smart enough to purchase them earlier. I'm reassuring you that immediately the plans are completed, the buses will start working. Nothing has happened to the buses. Well,
Demola, I think we'll leave it at that, and of course tomorrow will be another day to review the newspapers. If you're watching, this is Good Morning Nigeria. Please don't go away. We're looking at efforts to reform the discourse. We'll be right back.
I therefore call on my colleagues, or media professionals and editors, to be discerning in their reportage. We must deny these groups the undue publicity they crave. We must take them off the front pages and accurately report them as the criminals that they are, without glorifying their acts or giving credence to their false narratives. These, of course, are not freedom fighters. They are murderers, kidnappers, and destroyers, and they must be presented as such.
We are live in the open market for Epic 10X Challenge. My people, today I will show you how the power of new Epic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach. Yes, so impossible. Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Epic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs. Oh, wow. You can now see that Epic is better than bleach.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Ìjọba fún wa ní 75,000. NIN àti káàdì láti lọ gbà. Nígbà tí mo sì gbà, mo fi ṣe nǹkan tó dáa, mo ra oògùn nínú rẹ̀. Mo ra oúnjẹ tí màá jẹ nínú rẹ̀. Mo sì wọkọ̀ mi náà ń bẹ. A sì fi yòókù ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ ajé pé ká tó máa rí gbé bá. A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba wa òkè.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Just before we bring in our guest for our discussion on reforming the discos, let's take this background report by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Power, a major basic amenity everyone not only desire but deserve. A common service, yet not available to everyone in Nigeria. Over the years, resources have been spent on ensuring constant power, but epileptic power supply still seem to be the order of the day. Of much concern is the constant collapse of the national grid, which remains uncertain when the last of it will be heard of. This explains why the federal government announced a pilot overhaul of 2 underperforming electricity distribution companies, DISCOs, as the first step in a broader effort to revitalize the country's electricity distribution network. The initiative, which was unveiled by the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, is said to be a review of the persistent challenges affecting the sector, ranging from poor infrastructure and governance, vandalism and financial and operational inefficiencies. The move was announced after a strategy meeting with the Japanese International Cooperation Agency JICA, which presented a roadmap entitled Revamping of the Distribution Sector in Nigeria. The pilot reform which will kick off between May and August 2025, will target one disco in the north and one in the south, and the aim is to establish a replicable model for turning around performance through a combination of internal restructuring, external technical assistance, and proactive federal oversight. The roadmap was said to be developed after the minister's official visit to Japan to study its energy system, proposes a holistic, results-driven strategy for transforming Nigeria's ailing distribution sector. The plan emphasizes reforming DISCOs from within by integrating experienced external professionals, upgrading leadership structures, and aligning federal support with measurable short-term targets in the pilot zones. Now, with all these, can we say the end of the epileptic power supply is getting close? Can Nigeria indeed have a steady power supply? Our guests in the studio will be answering these and more questions shortly.
Oyemi Ajayi, many thanks to you for the background report on reforming the discourse. We have here in the studio for our conversation, let me quickly introduce Uket Ugbonga. Uket Ugbonga is Executive Secretary, Power Consumers Advocates of Nigeria, National Secretary, Network for Electricity Consumers Advocacy of Nigeria, NECAN and PCAN. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And good morning, Nigerians.
And also joining us from our Kaduna studio, we have Idris Mohammed. He is a power infrastructure expert and former MD CEO, Kaduna Electric. We thank you. Thank you for joining us from Kaduna.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, good morning to you, Mr. Mohammed. Now, joining us via Zoom from Ijebu-Ode is Bode Fadipe. Bode Fadipe is the CEO, Sage Consultant and Communications. Mr. Fadipe, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Also joining us from our Kano studio is Engineer Abdurrahman Umar Lawan, PhD, Senior Academic Department of Electrical and Senior Fellow, Center for Renewable Energy and Sustainable Transitions Energy Policy Advocate and Technical Consultant. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good morning. Okay, let's just kickstart our conversation from our Kaduna studio, where we have Idris Mohammed. Mr. Mohammed, can you just give us what exactly is the challenge, or what challenge do we have with our discos? Tell us what reforms do the disco actually need for efficiency?
Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you for having me. That background report by NTA is certainly a very good one, and it summarizes the actual position of the power sector in Nigeria, especially the distribution aspect that is so worrisome. What I would say is that from the start, when privatization was implemented, the basic rule which everyone signed for, that is the new owners, were not strictly kept in strict compliance. So we missed the point from the take-off point. Privatization is quite an excellent principle of business, of ensuring that utilities work. And the concept that was introduced in Nigeria was a good one. But then what about the players? The players who are responsible for implementing those concepts are the same people that are responsible for the failures of the Nigerian distribution network. I remembered very well before privatization, the discos were returning a cash collection performance of probably in some distribution companies like Eco, Ikeja, are returning a collection performance of 80%. And up to the time that privatization took place, because they retained some of those eggheads in the power holding company, the performance kept inching up from that moment. But I think like any other thing in Nigeria, owners change, and each time there is a change in ownership in the distribution company, it means also the strategic goalposts will change, because the concept and then the idea of the new owners will not be the same as those of the owners who just vacated the scene. And because of that, all those issues that have bedeviled the effective, smooth improvement in distribution supplies of electricity became hampered. And the government on its own part, when the privatization was done, had said, and the new owners were told, that in order for you to succeed, you would certainly need to retain your workforce for a number of time to support you, guide you through the process so that you can succeed. But that didn't happen. When the new owners came, they threw away a largest chunk of the distribution technical competent staff who knew every aspect of the business. And because they threw away those very huge number of employees, means that they will be managing a network that they are hardly competent to handle. The unfortunate part of throwing away the old competent staff and then bringing in new staff who are not even technically competent to do and understand the electricity business, added to the current situation that we have in Nigeria. Therefore, the idea that the principle of privatization had, which was good, became eluded by the new owners. Because it's a Nigerian system, they know it is a business that they can maneuver their ways. They get away with so many things. I remembered very well the funding of the power sector when the government was handling the business was just a paltry of what is being given. But right now that the business is privatized, the huge sums of money that given to the so-called privatized company is unbelievable. And then for some of us who have spent our lifetime establishing this viable electricity business, sometimes some of us, I'm not too sure, have had serious health challenges because we just can't bring ourselves to understand that this industry that we have built, we have spent our lifetime trying to develop, is allowed to just diminish over a period of time because leadership have changed from privatization to from government to privatization, and then privatization is less effective. Privatization is handled with impunity. Privatization is handled with I don't care what happens, but the whole idea is the privatization comes with the rule, and then those rules are there. Why is the government not ensuring that the rules of privatization are supervised, are monitored, and then where necessary, the airing discourse are checked? Nothing has happened. And then now, from what is happening, it looks like government is saying that they are going to bring consultant JICA from outside to come and manage a network that does not belong to them, a network that they know nothing about, a network that they are not competent to manage. where are we going? I don't think we're going anywhere. Power is supposed to be, all right, a utility that must be available to every Nigerian. Power is not the preserve of the rich or the very rich. Therefore, in Nigeria, power has now been classified for the very rich. In actual terms, Nigeria is in darkness. And I weep that Nigeria is in darkness because it's only when you are in band A that you will have electricity supply. If you are in any band outside band A, forget it. Nigeria is in darkness. Policy implementers, policy supervisors that are charged with the responsibility of ensuring that this crucial commodity is made available to Nigerians are not doing their job. And Nigeria is dying. Nigerians are dying. Businesses are folding up. Cost of living is going beyond the range of everyone. It is affecting everybody. It is affecting every home. It is affecting every.
Yes, Mr. Mohammed, I'm sorry to interject here. Just quickly for us before we escalate the conversation to our other guests. It would appear that you are absolving the discourse, from any blame when you alluded to certain players being responsible for the failure of the privatization, therefore the failure of the discourse to perform. Who exactly are these players you're talking about? Can you be a bit more specific?
I mean, the regulators. The regulators are charged with the responsibility of ensuring that the performance bond signed by the new owners, all right, are strictly abided by. And wherever there is a breach, we expect that that breach should be taken note of, and then lapses that is responsible or that were responsible for those breaches were addressed. I do know.
Well, we're sorry for that glitch. We hope that we'll get that sorted out and reconnect with Mr. Mohammed in our Kaduna studio. But again, let us also bring in other guests, of course, who are part of our conversation. Let me come to the studio and talk to Mr. Bonga. I don't understand. In 2013 thereabout, that was when the privatization was entered into with the discourse.
November 1st.
Exactly. And since then, government had taken several steps, to also, intervene, to incentivize the discourse, to enable them perform. You remember, the bailout, there was also the MAP, thing that government. So how are the regulators, according to Mr. Mohammed, responsible for the failure of the discourse to perform?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Like he said, the governance space, the regulatory space in the market. In fact, if anything is to be done, that is where they should begin with, right? In 2005, when the administration of President Obasanjo came up with this idea of privatizing the power sector, what were we told? That government does not have the three capacities, particularly the finances to run the power industry, right? And that they were looking out for investors who have the three C's. One, capacity, the financial capacity, managerial capacity, and the technical capacity. Nigeria went on a roadshow in major cities all over the world. 402 competent companies who had sector players with the resources paid $25,000 expression of interest form. But when they came down here, number one, there was no data. You recall that in Nigeria you have embassies with commercial desk officers here. So whatsoever you are doing here, they know it. And when some of them came in to conduct due diligence on the infrastructure and what we want to sell out to them, there was no data. That's problem number one. Majority of them pulled out. There was the issue of labor. Agitation. Should we do it? Should we not do it? Young men and women were taken from Nigeria to go to the best power institutions in the world to train, to come and run the show. None of them, not one, found itself in the regulatory space. Rather, they were taken over by privatized entities. That takes me to the ownership, the investors, the ownership of the privatized entities. We are talking of the discourse. Who were the owners? Who took over? Were they qualified? Did they obtain it as a result of political patronage or connections with the powers that be in government? Did they have the capacity, the financial capacity to man the sector? No. Even the acquisition capital, some of them, or majority, if not all of them, obtain loans from commercial banks. For instance, Ibadan Disco was valued at 169 million in 2013. 169 million.
Million is dollars.
Dollars.
Okay.
$169 million. Today they are talking of privatizing, selling it at for $60 million. Number one, though they paid for the acquisition capital, they lacked the capital to invest thereafter. Meaning, you sign performance agreement that ATC and C that was about 47-48% will come down. And that was the consideration. What is the ATC and what is ATC and C? Aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses. Scale it down, your revenues will go up. If today, according to the last quarter report of NEC, ATC and C percentage losses is between 35 to 40%. What is the interpretation in a layman's language? For every 100 naira, you are losing 35 to 40 naira. You are only collecting the balance. And we are talking of liquidity in the market. Apart from what is going on there, one phrase or word that defines and describes what is going on in the power sector is lack of finances. The distribution companies are saddled with the responsibility to do what? To collect revenues for the rest of the operators in the value chain. But what happens? We began with a distrust. Okay, before the distrust, the discos came on board and they had what they call legacy debts owed by the customers to the defunct NEPA and PSCN. They were collecting these monies. Nobody heard. Until when after they exhausted those collections, we started hearing in 2015, 2016 of what? A drop in revenue collections. And various, like you cited, 701 billion in 2017 was made available as payment assurance guarantee fund to enable MBET. It was made available to Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trader to enable them pay gas suppliers. And that was to cover between 2017, 2018, 2019, January 2019 to March 2020. Another 600 billion was made available because of what? Revenue shortfalls in the market. But the investors retain 60% equities. The federal government, 40% equities. Right. Even in the representation of the federal government in the boards of these privatized entities, it became an issue of politics. And those that could not represent the interest of Nigerians in this. Discos were on a free, some of them were collecting, selling electricity in naira, paying themselves in dollars in this country until we blew the whistle. The mess in the sector is not about, see, like he said, this is overdue.
Let's look at the what you just mentioned, the fall in the revenue, the drop in the revenue. Now, what would you ascribe that? Because what is out there in the public domain is that the discos were not interested, regardless of, the share of the equity. They were not interested in investing in the infrastructure, and that of course would have a ripple effect on their investment returns.
Okay, let me put it this way.
Yes.
You went to buy a second-hand Tokumbo car that had been driven and battered over the years. You pay the cost of what? The car as valued at the time of purchase. You need money, right? To go to the mechanic, replace certain parts so that you can drive your car.
No, but they have been issued. It was expected that you would have the money to do that.
And because the selection process of those who invested eventually did not follow the due process. It was political patronage. I made a presentation to the El-Rufai Committee on ownership of privatized entities in Nigeria. Who were the owners? Who were the owners behind Abuja Disco, Port Harcourt Disco, Ikeja Disco, Iko Disco? Who were the owners? Can they unveil them? There were men and women in the society that were close to the government that had this, that had the opportunity. Core investors, people who had the resources, they don't have the space. We're not given the opportunity. So if you cannot now, you are talking of liquidity terms and revenue shortfalls. Now, a disco that is serious in the business of distribution of electricity must make sure you have the meter. The meter remains a revenue assurance tool in the electricity market. The meter measures electricity received and consumed and electricity received and consumed. I have paid a certain amount of money, I think last week Friday, to AEDC in my prepaid meter. I'm on Bambi.
Mr. Wenga, I don't want us to go. I don't want us to go too back. Too far back, because there's an objective. There is a pilot, effort now to reform the discourse, to get the discourse to do the right thing. So, from all that you've said, do you now? What would then be your impression about the efforts by the present, leadership of the ministry to reform the discourse?
One, Fashola launched what is called, or relaunched what is called, Power Sector Recovery Program in 2018. And in that document, most of the things, I believe, I have not seen the so-called overhaul, something they are talking about, are embedded in that document. Was it implemented? No. Electricity industry in Nigeria has become a huge laboratory for what? Testing ideas, untested ideas, experimentations that fail. I repeat, it's a huge laboratory for all manner of experimentations.
Okay. All right.
All manner of experimentation.
Mr. Bonga, all manner of experimentation. We'll come back to you. Let's bring in our other guest into this discussion as we go to our Kano studio where we have Engineer Umar Lawan. Engineer Lawan, I'm sure that you must have been listening to the conversation so far, and we're trying to examine the challenges, facing electricity distribution in Nigeria. And some of the challenges that has been mentioned has been that the players are majorly responsible for the failure, and the change of ownership also escalated the challenge that we had. And we talked about the issue of the military metering gaps, in the system. From your own perspective, what do you think is responsible for this challenge that we are having with the disco?
much once more. You can see from the information coming out from the Federal Ministry of Power is that even though it's not adequately rebuilt, because the plan the federal government is having is imminent, is coming very soon. But part of the problem is that they are talking about governance gaps. And these governance gaps actually comes as a result of weak regulatory compliance first in the country across every level, especially at distribution level involving discourse in the country. You can see because the regulatory aspect is centralized aspect in the country and is headed by NEC, that is National Electricity Regulation Commission. As you know, when you are dealing with centralized system, there could be surfaces or resurfaces of problems, especially at lowest level, where the government is far away from the reality. So in other words, this is also part of the contributory reason for that weakness, which has led us to where we have found ourselves now. Thank God, the same government has also embarked on the implementation of 2023 Electricity Act, which is a popular National Electricity Act that allows states to create regulatory laws over discourse and other players in the states. I believe bringing regulatory body closer to discourse with good implementation strategy will really facilitate solving the problems on ground. For instance, you can see now NEC is dealing with about 36 states plus federal capital territory. You see the staff they have may not be adequately. I think they have less than 2,000 staff. So you see they have a limited capacity in that aspect. So I believe with coming out of this 2023 Electricity Act, actually that's part of the governance gaps may be cushioned. Also, they also discuss, thank God you have talked about issue of transition. It's also part of the problem. But there is also part of board independence. You see, most of this discourse, political interference is really working in their organizational structure. So now having this plan, what the federal government is introducing, actually will help and cushion those effects of political interference, because now the business is not going to be as usual. Now discourse are going to be held responsible for what they are doing. So actually this is part of the what is expected to come up, and thank God now the Electricity Act has started working. We can see out of the 36 states we have now, about 11 states have reached stage of asset delineation. So now the discourse to be candid are going to be faced with double sort process, while federal government is calling for the unbundling along the state line. It's also calling for the regulation in the sector. It's also calling for more investment. It's also calling for private participation. The state will also have the same objectives. So you can see virtually the state and the federal government now are having brought at least almost same objectives toward discourse. So really discourse, they are really facing challenges which are eminent. And the only solution, I think, in my own opinion, is to really look at the advantages they have. Thank God the 2023 Electricity Act is coming up. The states are now electing laws. It's better to align with this recent policy and take advantage as a major player in the state, so that they can start to mitigate the problems faced or the problem mentioned by the federal government. Thank you.
All right. I just want us to be clear that there is, a fundamental, a good reason or good reasons, to look into the books of the discourse. And, so far, the responses that we've gotten, is, indicating that there are good grounds to look into the books of the performance of the discourse. And that is the point, the path that the Ministry of Power is taking. So let's bring in Bode Fadikbe. Bode Fadikbe, of course, is joining us via Zoom from Ijebu, and he's the CEO, Sage Consulting and Communications. Bode, if you're with us, let's again look at, the pilot overhauling project of the Ministry of Power. Now it's targeting, both internal, cleansing and external, the use of external experts. What, in your view, or how might these, help? Previous interventions, there have been previous interventions, and we've seen those interventions, the extent to which they worked. Now, what do you think of this mix?
Thank you so much. Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you for having me. I'd like to adopt, first and foremost, the position of other speakers in the studio. But based on the question you have asked me, I think the first thing we need to see here is that I'm a bit uncomfortable with the use of the word pilot. I'm a communications person, and I'm very conscious of words. Is this the first time that we are intervening in the power sector? Is this the first time that government is intervening since 2013, 2013 being the baseline? Is this the first time? This is not the first time. Let's take the most recent one, which is that of this Siemens project. What has become of the Siemens project? For me, what we are seeing, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but I just want to clarify that the pilot, according to the ministry, according to the minister, it's a pilot, that will be done on the discourse, one from the north, one from the south. So it's not an intervention, that covers the whole of the discourse, but just one from the north and one from the south. So probably after this stage, then, we will know whether to extend the whole intervention to all the discourse. I just wanted to let that know. The pilot is not from us. That's how it is termed.
I understand it. I'm not operationalizing on that word from your own perspective, but from what the minister said when he said one from the south, one from the north. And I'm wondering, what is the essence of the pilot? I mean, are you saying that having done the pilot, then you go to other discourse? That's number one. Does the federal government still have the authority to begin to query the discourse as they are currently, given the fact that there is a new ownership? Yes, federal government has 40%, which is golden 40%, but can they walk into a disco and begin to restructure? For me, what we are seeing is another example of policy inconsistency in the power sector. And that has been one of the fundamental problems that the power sector has been having since 2013 when it was privatized. Federal government sold, the then federal government, and we must be very careful in drawing that line. The then federal government sold the power sector to those that it cannot look in the face and tell them off. Obong mentioned three factors: financial incapacity, managerial incapacity, technical incapacity. The fourth one is the political incapacity of the federal government to look at those that they sold the discourse to and tell them that you are not performing. They cannot look them in the face because they all meet at different times in the night to discuss the power sector and take decisions that are not in tandem with what the power sector is supposed to achieve. Nigeria is now going back to JICA and asking JICA to come in. To come and do what? JICA wrote a report in 2019, 189 pages. JICA wrote another report in 2021, about 240 pages. What are they doing with those reports? What we are seeing currently is a situation where we'll bring back the Siemens approach. Manitoba did it in TCN. They failed, and Manitoba was driven away. Siemens started it. We can't see what Siemens has done. If there's rain today, is there any network that is going to survive the rain? So what are we talking about? As far as I'm concerned, This is just another opportunity. The power sector is the shop sector. This is just another opportunity to go ahead, and then next time we have another minister, that minister will go to India and they will bring India model again. By the time we remove that minister, another minister comes in, we'll go to which country is that again? Maybe we're already romancing China, we are romancing Japan, we have romanced India before. Which is the next country we are going to? Maybe we'll go to Australia. So as far as I'm concerned, there is nothing striking, there is nothing new, there is nothing exciting. It's not likely to produce any result. We are just jumping in one spot, a lot of motion without movement, as far as I'm concerned. There is nothing new to be said about the power sector that we have not said on NTA, whether on NTA 24, Good Morning Nigeria, or on any other station in this country that has not been said. Obang and myself are familiar faces. The former MD of Kaduna Electricity, who is also in the studio this morning, we are familiar faces. So what is the new thing that we want to say that government does not know about, that the current minister does not know about? I'm afraid there's nothing new to be said. Even you, the moderators of this program, you are more familiar with the power sector today than you were several years ago. So for me, they are talking about internal restructuring, external technical assistance, and then government regulation. This is an indictment on government itself. If government is saying we want to look at government regulation, this is an indictment on government itself. It means that government has not done as much as it ought to do. Because if by now, 10 years after, we are still thinking about inadequacy in government regulation, we are still talking about technical assistance. The former MD of Kaduna mentioned something that is striking. When the new owners came, they just took the baby and the bathwater, threw everybody away, forgetting that there is something called experience, whether in the power sector, whether in the finance sector, whether in the education sector, whether in the security sector. Every sector has its own quality of manpower that you cannot just take them, their legacy experience, everything, and dump. Obang has never worked in the power sector. But if you take him out of the power sector today and you say you don't need this experience, you'll be killing a lot of information. Not to talk of those who have direct contact with the power sector, working day and night, doing so many things to make sure that there is. I must even praise those who are there right now. That we still have electricity in this country is a miracle. That we still have electricity is a miracle.
But I don't seem to get you. On one hand, you are, saying that the discos are not performing. And indeed, if you look at that report that you referenced, the JICA report of 2019, which I have here with me, from the number of forced fault outages to long fault restoration lines to defective fault lines. I mean, the data of this performance, the mandatory performance benchmark on this area, it's not encouraging. It's not encouraging. So on the part of the discos, there is need for some form of reform. And on the other hand, you are saying that the reform, the pilot or whatever intervention that the government wants to take, you're not optimistic about it. So what should be done? Should we just leave the status quo?
I'm not saying we should leave it the status quo. I'm saying that government must go beyond mere sloganeering. Government must move beyond that point. Who are the two discos that government is proposing in the north and in the south? I mean, those who are close to the power sector can look at their crystal ball and they can tell you, but that's not the conversation this morning. I'm not in a position to mention which disco in the north or which disco in the south. Okay? But I'm saying that what government is about doing, government had done it before. It is obvious to the blind that the power sector is not performing, whether generation, transmission, distribution. It is just in percentage. The one that is more obvious to us is that of distribution that is carrying the larger chunk of the inadequacy. Otherwise, if you do a stress test in the generation today, you will see gaps. Not to talk of transmission where the gaps are also as obvious, and then, of course, distribution. But what I'm saying is that government must go beyond mere rhetoric. What has happened to Siemens projects? To what extent has Siemens contributed? Why are we moving to Japan now? Why are we taking Japan so seriously now? What are the inadequacies we found with Siemens that is making us to go to Japan? Why are we not correcting the inadequacies in the Siemens project in Germany and then go and then make progress. Why do we now want to change? Now what we are going to have at the end of the day is a car that has Japanese parts, German parts, Indian parts, Australian parts, parts from Canada, because we have dealt with Manitoba of Canada. We have dealt with Germany, Siemens. We're not going to Japan. By the time you assemble all these parts together and use it as one car, of course you and I can guess the performance of that car. So let government be consistent. Let government go beyond mere sloganeering. Let government develop the political will to do the things that he says he wants to do, and not all of this public relations work that we are doing.
Mr. Bode Fadipe, government needs to be more consistent and shy away from political interference in the electricity sector. All right, we have gotten some responses from our viewers, which we'll just read out now so that some of our guests can respond to them. This one says, good morning, Nigerians. The government didn't do due diligence before giving out license to the discos during privatization process, as some of them lacks the technical know-how, the financial power to manage an entity of that magnitude. In some cases, there is no difference between the defunct NEPA. To improve on disco, government should review their mandate and previous agreements by activating better service clauses. This one is from Engineer Umayang from Jos. The only overflow topic in Nigeria today is electricity. Too much invested, too little result obtained. This is clearly a product of sabotage by few elements who are only Nigerians by name and not by heart. And this one is reforming the disco. The disco government had made a serious mistake due to their selfish interest. They could have sold it to companies that are in power energy, but they used the foreign investors to buy and lay them off after. They bought it by going to the bank to borrow. How can you borrow to improve a dying company? Disco can only be made viable again with the following steps. Collect it from the politicians who use the experts to buy them and displaced. Motivate the staff. For the over 10 years, many of the staff have not been promoted. Be interested to invest in the industry. We should also remove politics out of power, transparency of government, of both government and the operators, and so on and so forth. That is from Ajakai. Okay. Claire,
yes,
you have some?
Yes, I have. And incidentally, this is coming from Engineer Jude Ugoke. He's a metering and revenue protection expert. And I'm just going to read what he has sent to us. He says, it is unfortunate that we are where we are in terms of power supply in Nigeria. Sincerely, the distribution companies, DISCOs, are striving to achieve a stable power distribution. However, we continue to face challenges such as the cost-reflective tariff issue and rampant energy theft, which result in significant collection and commercial losses. Some DISCOs are funding metering initiatives in Nigeria, including those supported by the federal government, such as the MAF and MAP initiatives. However, I can authoritatively state that the rampant energy theft, coupled with the lack of requisite legislation to address this issue, is not only hindering the pace of meter installation, but also impacting revenue geometrically. Given these challenges, generating sufficient revenue to invest into distribution infrastructure has become a significant hurdle. Engineer Jude. This other one is from Alhaji Sikiru Oladepo Balogun. Is a consumer at Ile-Ife. He says, good morning, you are appreciated for this program. Please let the disco companies know that their workers are making consumers pay more than what they consume. The new meters being provided, consumers are reading excessively. The manufacturer should be contacted by the disco firm for revaluation of the meters. And I think this is very important. And I like to go to Kaduna our Kaduna studio where Mr. Mohammed is, former MD CEO Kaduna Electric. What do you think? Because this is a very fundamental question that Alhaji Sikiru Oladekpo Balogun, who is a consumer at Ileife, would want to know. He's saying that the meters that the discos are providing now are running excessively. What are your thoughts? And yet we are saying that the discos have no fault.
Claire, once again, good morning, Nigerians. The comments from various customers regarding issues affecting or militating against smooth improvement in distribution services are quite true, especially with the one of Sikiru, who specifically is talking about the quality of metering that we have at the moment in the industry or in the country. By and large, I think it will not be wrong to assume that a customer is interested in the quality of service he receives from the discos. If a customer is saying that his new meter is speeding up, it means that he is conscious of the quality of meter that is being supplied with. If, on the other hand, the service provider, the discos, or the owners are behind the supplies of those quality of meters, I think they should be morally upright and then know that there is God. If there is no one else, there is God. And then you can only cheat a customer to a certain point. But there is the day of retribution. And that day of retribution will affect everyone. The disco owners, the staff, and everyone. But I think fundamentally, moving away from that.
Mr. Mohammed, just hold your thoughts. Please just hold your thoughts. When we come back, you continue. We'd just like to take a very short break. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Please don't go away.
Represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during interment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Welcome to Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis, a TV series dedicated to aging and older persons in Nigeria. Be part of this series and discover the transformative programs crafted to give a new lease of life to our senior citizens, courtesy of the National Senior Citizen Center.
The National Senior Citizen Center is the oasis for the senior citizens.
For thought-provoking discussions on aging, geriatric social care, and issues that matter most to our senior citizens.
Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis. Tune in to Silver Oasis on the network service of the NTA every Saturday at 10:05 p.m. Silver Oasis, improving the quality of lives of senior citizens.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
All right, thank you for joining us again. And this is Good Morning Nigeria. Please keep your comments coming in. Before we went on break, Mohammed from our Kaduna studio was, of course, responding to my questions, or to the question raised by, Sikiru from Ile-Ife. Please, Mr. Mohammed, you can go on now.
Quality of metering certainly is a big issue in the industry, and then the owners should please know, and they should be conscientious to know that customers know what they are getting, they know what they expect, and then therefore they are very particular about the quality of service that they receive. But let me say that Bode and I have spoken in this place with Claire and her colleague, and then Obot. They have said that the issue of policy inconsistency is the major problem that we have in Nigeria. The Ministry of Power, that is actually charged with the responsibility of ensuring that policies that will improve power supply, distribution, transmission, and generation, they are working entirely out of the box. We say we like to think all right, we would like to think outside the box, but they are operating right inside the box. So, by and large, what I'm trying to say is that the ministry is not actually consulting with the right professionals that will give them advices that will add value to the quality of power supply in Nigeria. You can see from all indications that the issue of tariff was a big issue. It was done independently without consultation. If there are consultations, we need to have evidences. Now the issue of JICA that would champion the cause of improving distribution services in Nigeria is also an issue. Bode mentioned about the Siemens agreement. The Siemens agreement. Why is no one talking about the Siemens agreement? I don't think that this Siemens agreement is is not a good option, because Siemens agreement has worked in other regions of the world, and that is why it is actually a model. And then Nigeria should actually look at the way of implementing it, the way it is implemented in other countries. But behind it all is people are managing those relationships, and those people who are managing those relationships are the same people that are actually working together with the people who are supposed to be in charge of ensuring that policies work. Policies will normally work when there is fairness. Policies will work when there is transparency. Policies will work when there is consultation. And once all of these are not put together and managed properly, then we will still be moving around the same cycle with no result. Actually, it is so devastating at the moment that power is not available to the poor. The middlemen, like I said, there is no more middlemen. And then the rich, even the rich cannot afford electricity at the moment. It's only the extremely rich that can afford electricity, that can afford to be in Band B. It's so terrific. It's so unfortunate that things are not working, and then they are not working because policy inconsistency that needs to drive the entire industry is missing. Policy inconsistency that is supposed to be the prime motive of governance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. The rich also cry. We are all crying here because it affects everyone. Well, policy inconsistency, wrong implementation of the policies as well. We have more responses from our viewers, which probably Mr. Obonga will just respond to. Let me just take these two. This one says, good morning. It is from Festus from Cross River. Said, good morning, NTA, and your question and your guest in the studio. It seems government is not ready. Let's tell ourselves the truth for once. For all things, how can we be talking of electricity now? Is a shame. Let every state or sort out for their electricity and leave government alone. That's Festus. From Cross River. And this one's Engineer Olayinka Olatunde, Subset Energy Lagos, says, good morning. Why must we depend only on national grid? We have several means to generate lights to different regions and states, e.g. through sun, iron rod, spark plug, etc. Until we realize this, I doubt our seriousness as a nation.
Okay.
And okay.
That's Engineer Olayinka.
Olayinka Olatunde, yes.
Okay. So this one is coming from Abubakar from Port Harcourt and Neleleon, and he says, we buy 4 units for 1,000 naira.
Mm-hmm.
Are those people in your studio aware? Because none of them is talking about this. And some places like Akpajo, also in Port Harcourt, people are buying 24 units for 1,000 naira. What is happening? Mr. Oket, I think this is your area.
I think they are aware. I think that's why Mr. Mohammed
Yes.
said there is God. Though.
Yes, so, but let Mr.
Okay, thank you very much. On the issue of buying, let us begin from there. The issue of buying 4 units
for 1,000.
For 1,000 naira.
And in some places, 24 units for 1,000.
And that area is on Band A. In other words, he is paying 209 naira 50 kobo per unit. And now when you calculate 7.5% VAT, the 7.5% VAT that is added raises it from 209 naira 50 kobo to 225 naira per unit.
So that's what he's paying.
That is what he's paying. Now the fellow that he pays
in Akpajo
pays
buys 24 units at 1,000.
He's either Band C.
That one is Band C or Band D.
Band D, yes. You can see the difference. The difference between Band C here, Band B rather, is about 63 naira. Band B. Now Band A is 225 naira.
But he gets electricity constantly.
Now the philosophy, if I may use that language, behind the service-based tariff that introduced these tariff bands is that Band A are entitled to a minimum of 20 hours of supply. Band B, 16. Coming down to Band C, 12 hours. Band D, 8 hours. Band E, if it exists, 4 hours. But the question is that who measures it? And at what point? Then the regulator will tell you, oh, we are measuring it with technology at the feeder level. Let me cite an example. There is a feeder in Abakaliki, capital of Ebonyi State, a feeder that serves 3 local governments in Cross River, a distance of not less than 85 kilometers. So from the feeder to the transformers and the customers, if anything happens, whoa. So you don't measure hours of supply at the feeder, because between the feeder and the consumers, there's a distance, and in some cases, huge distance. Here, Sun City, the feeder that serves Sun City is at Kukwaba, up to Sunnyvale and that axis, which is over 5 or 7 kilometers. So what happens in between? So the point at which you measure hours of supply is at the customer end. So this is the area, the inconsistencies we are looking at. Now we talked about metering. What is a meter? A meter is a device that is, programmed, like they say in computing, is it giggle in or something out? Put in something, what you put in is what you get.
Garbage in, garbage
Garbage
out.
in, garbage out. Right. Now, a meter can be manipulated, can be programmed. Like somebody said, I had a report here in the Garki village where a lady, 5,000 naira is swallowed within a day. Just a shop, nothing. A shop, a cosmetic shop, nothing. No machines there, nothing. 5,000 naira, 2 days it goes. So, but what is the reasons, what are the probable reasons behind this? Number one, the discos now are using what they call automated meter reader, AMR. They don't need to come to your house, particularly for postpaid meters, to read your meter, though it is provided for. Now, we are aware that some discos reprogrammed, they take the meter for certification, go to NEMSA, Nigeria Electricity Management Services Agency, that satisfies the meters before they put. But when they take 1 or 2 or 3 meters for certification, they come in. NEMSA is not there for reprogramming. So we are aware that some discos, they reprogram the meter to read 250 watts for 1 kilowatt hour. I confronted a professor.
Who are these discos? Because we need to. No, because we need to. Who are these discos?
Let me come. When we had this some time ago, here in the AEDC, I called a professor from Futo, who is an expert in metering. I said, is it possible? He said, 100% possible. Because a meter can be programmed. What did the young man do? He went there with a laptop to reprogram the meter. So that for every 1 kilowatt, which is 1,000 watts, the meter could be reading 250 for 1. So that for each kilowatt, you are making 4 extra 3. So this is it. When we raised their land, they quickly went and stopped it. It is possible for the meter. We are talking of Nigerians. And also, this is not the only area. There's what is called Green Park. Green Park. What is Green Park?
What's Green Park?
Green Park is simply padding. It began in the days of NEPA and NITER. Oh, they look at Madame Clay. She's a big woman on NTA. She has money. So if there's revenue shortfall,
that's true.
Yeah, they push. They push some unit. Excel Hotel in former FEMA here. AEDC was padding their units by 12,000. 12,000 in a month. I investigated it. I conducted energy consumption audit on 120 hotels in Abuja. So I know what I'm talking. I'm not speculating. And I have the record.
So these are the reasons why these are the reasons
so
why
now Green Park is particularly it affects MD customers. MD customers. Your meter has read so number of units. Example, Hotel de Bentley in Utako here. That was given a bill of 5.7 million naira. I was doing a program in Calabar when they called. And when we came in there, we discovered that something went wrong. Not on the meter, by the meter readers who went there. And I took out almost 50% of that money after thorough investigations. So there are manipulations. They pad units. As we speak, 30 hotels in Abuja here, they had their bills padded to the tune of 279 million naira. 30 hotels. I have the records. I have it here. Under Green Park, padding of units. Padding of units.
How do we solve this challenge?
So that is where we now, apart from that padding of units, most of them equally bill customers outside approved tariff rates. It happened. I'm an energy consultant, consumption consultant. And I'm not talking based on what I read. I'm telling you, if you challenge me, I'll show you the facts. Now, apart from that, for non-ND customers, there's a regulation that is called capping of estimated bills. Now, a disco Abuja here, I think was fined about 600 million. And they are still doing it. For instance, the last time I was here, I revealed to the world that somewhere a customer under band a widow woman with 4 children living in 2 mud houses, they gave her a bill of 326,000. And when she cried, I went there, looked at it. If you compute everything that was in that house, the highest that woman should pay, if she is given 24/7 in a month, is 21,000 naira. But she was given 300-something thousand naira. Why? Because they, instead of using 360 units approved for that feeder for that month, the disco used 1,403 units.
Mr. Gwenga, thank you. And I think these are some of the
things.
These are some of the reasons why the federal government has come out to say, look, it will no longer fold its arms and watch all of these inconsistencies, and there is God matter to continue to exist. And that's why it had said, look, we are going to reform this this aspect of the discourse in 2 ways. We're going to look at internal reforms, and then we are going to inject the external reforms, which is via JICA and all that. But my question I want to ask Engineer Abdulrahman Umar Lawan, who is in the Kano studio, is the role of the Regulatory Commission, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and NBET. What should be the role of these 2 entities within this new framework of reforms?
You see, when you are talking about NEC, that is National Electricity Regulation Commission, in this coming reform, as I said earlier, their role from one aspect is going to be reduced or limited. Because if you could remember, at the same time, the same federal government deregulated the sector of electricity in the country, starting from the generation, distribution, and transmission sector. For me, I cannot categorically look at it as a policy inconsistency. Rather, I will look at it as a policy progress. The reason I say that is the fact that, previously, if you look at the generation aspect, was almost owned throughout by the government, and the transmission line was also monopolized by the government. But now that all companies are coming on board, there's much more possibility that we are going to see positive results, just as the case of financial banking sector. You could see, if you could remember 20 years ago, before the regulation of the sector, there was so much problems in the sector. But now we can look at it after 20 years and say, yes, we have development in the banking sector. We have multiple banks competing against each other. There's a relatively fair playing ground for the competitors or the banks to really operate on. That which has really led to efficiency in the sector. So the same thing applies to the electricity sector. I don't see it as a policy inconsistency. Rather, I see it as a policy progress. Now that the sector is being deregulated, of course, the role of NBET and the role of NEC will be limited, especially in the states that have already enacted those laws, and this common discourse are also operating in such states. So you can see, but on the other hand, I could remember even the NEC role is being reviewed from the recent 2023 Electricity Act, which a lot of people are not looking at it. It's a very big milestone in the electricity sector. And with that policy, this common policy that is coming from the federal government, it means we'll be having parallel policies going on, which may likely improve the sector. I'm so optimistic. Even though, as we said, the state government will be having their own state law, which eventually will give them a chance to create their respective state regulatory body, meaning the problem now is not going to be a central government problem as an exclusive problem. Rather, it will be a multi-tier problem where the federal government, the state government, and even the local government will be partaking. As well, when you have 3 tiers of government, definitely the role will be distributed accordingly. But on the other hand, I'm calling on the government, especially the federal government, shouldn't be carried out by the implementation of 2023 Electricity Act to leave the burden on the state government. Of course, power sector problem has been a decade problem or multi-decade problem that needs there is a huge investment deficit. So on the other hand, please, the federal government should also keep on doing. For me, bringing Japan after bringing Siemens from Germany is not a problem. Of course, nowadays one has to look for investment. The investment is not a small investment. I'm also calling on the discourse, the state, and also to look outside the box, to look for international funding regarding the investment of the sector. So that's it.
Much, Engineer Umar there. Okay, let's bring in Mr. Bode Fadigbe. I want you to just, because of our time, I want you to just I want to have your take on the fact that the World Bank is calling on the federal government, to remove electricity subsidy. What's your take on that?
Whether the World Bank gives the federal government that advice or not, is obvious that the government cannot sustain the continual use of subsidy as an instrument to assuage the liquidity challenge in the power sector, because government does not have all of that resources to itself. So for me, it's an inevitable situation that we must begin to cognizance of and prepare for it. I know that in the last couple of weeks, there has been conversations around adjustment of the tariff coming from the Honorable Minister of Power. We don't know who is going to be affected, whether band A is going to be affected again, or it's going to be band B, C, E, and D that are going to be affected this time around, because in the last adjustment, they were not affected. It was band A alone. But at the end of the day, the major issue, the central issue for me is the achievement of a power sector that can deliver on its mandate. As much as we feel very uncomfortable with several steps and missteps that have been taken, the question remains, how can Nigeria become sufficient in electricity? A report came out some few days ago, or about a week or two ago, saying that Nigeria is the #1 country in the world where you have the largest number of those who don't have access to electricity. #1 country in the world where you have the largest number of those who don't have access to electricity. And we have been struggling with this issue for a while in this country. Even before privatization, we have been struggling with availability of electricity. After privatization, when we thought that we had gotten the solution to the problem, we have not moved too far away from that point in 2013. We speak today.
We do apologize. We've actually, we've run out of time. We'd just like to get the response of, Mohammed Idris in just 30 seconds. Where do we go from here? Mr. Mohammed, how can we make this reform work? In 60 seconds, if you may, please.
If you are driving a car, or if you own a car and it's Mercedes, you have to go to a Mercedes to get the best maintenance for your car. So, and the same applies to the service industry, like the power sector. Moving away, the policy inconsistency must be addressed. And that is the only way that we can move forward and ensure that to a reasonable extent we are able to make a breakthrough in improving power supply in Nigeria.
Mr. Mohammed, the policy issue must be addressed, consistency in policy. In 30 seconds, Mr. Obong, 30 seconds.
I don't agree with what the minister is proposing. There are a lot of documents, written papers on how to. Let's revisit the 2018 relaunched Power Sector Recovery Program, which the World Bank made. Secondly, we are talking of subsidy and no subsidy. The federal government has 40% equities in all the gas companies operating in Nigeria. If we are talking of another tariff review and increase, I have said it repeatedly, it is hypothetical, it is not a silver bullet. What should the federal government do quickly? The federal government can give up that 40%. If it gives up that 40%, freeze it, and maybe shift it to the GENCOs, tariff will come down.
Mr. Okat, Obama, thank you. Executive Secretary, Power Consumers Advocates of Nigeria, we'd like to thank you. We'd also like to thank Idris Mohammed, Power Infrastructure Expert, former MD CEO, Kaduna Electric. Bode Fadikwe, CEO Sage Consulting, joined us from Ijebu via Zoom, and engineer Abdurrahman Umar Lawan, Senior Academic Department of Electrical and Senior Fellow, also joined us. Thank you all for your contributions to Good Morning Nigeria today. And that's it. I am Claire Adilabu Abdulrazak.
And I'm Ademola Adeoye. Thanks for joining us. Join us again tomorrow for another interesting episode.